From the Westchester Guardian, Volume 11, Number 20, edition issue Thursday, September 29, 2016. Another article that I found to be quite interesting, and as it was published 4 years ago, it should also prove very interesting to kind of look back on and see how it is relative today. It's part of the Creative Disruption series, the 212th column, and Last, by John F. McMullen. This is the 212th column in the Creative Disruption series. Parentheses, we began the numbering as computer people do, with 0-0, close parentheses. A series that began in December 2011. Unfortunately, this is also the last column of this type for the Westchester Guardian, as the publisher has announced that the paper is about to join the ranks of the New York Herald Tribune, the Brooklyn Eagle, the Westchester Star, the New York Journal American, and too many other cadavers in the cemetery of departed newspapers. I say unfortunate not only for me, as I lose, in parentheses, hopefully only for the time being, close parentheses, the opportunity to rant publicly about issues that I consider important, but also the readers will not only lose my column, but those of ex-congressman and vice chair of the 9/11 Commission, Lee Hamilton, Robert Scott, Mary Keon, and the legendary critic John Simon. In the introductory blurb for the series, I wrote, quote, in this series, my intent is to connect the dots not in a human life, but rather in the life of the technology around us, so we can look at where we came from and what the ramifications of the trip have been. I will also look at the elements that underlie the technology that is now part of our lives and speculate as to where the technology may take us. The impact of the technology explosion is obvious in some areas, such as the constant geometric increase in the power of computers as described by Moore's Law. In other areas, such as photography, journalism, medicine, it may not be as apparent until we step back and realize that the world has quote-unquote gone digital and that this transition in some ways impacts everything. As we step back, perhaps we will be in awe as we note how far we've come from the Pony Express to email, the telegraph to cellular, Kitty Hawk to Apollo 11, vinyl to MP3, and the ENIAC, it's all in capitals, ENIAC, to a device that is held in a hand and is a combination computer, camera, and telephone. I hope so, and welcome aboard for the ride. Quote, the world changes around us. Sometimes we recognize the changes as they happen. Most times we do not, end quote. In short, the series has been focused around technology, but was never about technology per se, but rather about the impact that technology has had and will continue to have on our lives. Unless something has a direct impact on us or on a relative or neighbor, we rarely stop to think of the massive changes to society in the last 30 years brought on by technology. To be sure, we may remember when people walking down the street were engrossed in conversation to the person next to them and not to someone miles away through the device in their hands or pockets. Older people may also bemoan the fact that the younger generations always seem to have their nose buried in a handheld device rather than engaging in conversation with those around them. As a side note, my parents always used to get on me, always saying that my nose is always buried in a book. Why don't you come and sit and talk with us? Your nose is always buried in a book. So I guess it's always going to be something. Anyway. Of course, end of side note. Of course, everyone gathers information through the use of Google, email, and YouTube, and shops at Amazon and other online retail stores. Many never knew a world without these tools. So there are, of course, many benefits that have been brought by the explosion of technology, as every device from our phones, televisions, cars, and refrigerators to the so-called Internet of Things is actually a computer. In parentheses, just not like the thing on a desk or in our portable case. Close parentheses. I remember over 15 years ago when ex-Senate and presidential candidate Carly Fiorina, at the time CEO of Hewlett-Packard, told an audience, quote, "A digital camera is a computer that takes pictures, an airplane is a computer that flies, and someday all of our devices will be computers," unquote. And this statement was a shock to people. It was, of course, true, but it was a much different way of looking at things. This statement was made less than a decade after the advent of the World Wide Web, the application that brought computers into homes, opening shopping and information gathering to those sitting at a keyboard rather than walking through malls or researching in a library. Most didn't realize it then, but these developments, the World Wide Web and digital photography, really mandated the development of the iPhone, iTunes, and all smartphones. Innovation that destroyed the consumer film processing industry, parentheses, and forced Kodak into bankruptcy, close parentheses, and tore apart the music industry. While all this was going on around us, the constant ongoing innovation was eliminating jobs. There were 3 separate drivers in this movement. Global telecommunications allowed companies to move factories from the United States or subcontract work to areas of the world that had the cheapest labor cost. Through this process of offshoring, a company could put itself in a position to compete with foreign firms both in the global market and domestically, while still managing the organization from Armonk, New York, Detroit, Michigan, or Little Rock, Arkansas. Robotics, a form of artificial intelligence that allows the replacement of human labor with machines and jobs that are repetitive, boring, dangerous, or require great strength. In short, the large majority of manufacturing jobs. Artificial intelligence, the vast, untapped, non-robotic portion of AI, through intelligent algorithms, big data, and machine learning, are eliminating white-collar jobs in retail, finance, journalism, medicine, music, transportation, security, the military, just about any job. To be sure, these innovations also create jobs, usually higher-paying jobs than ones they replace, but they create far fewer jobs than those eliminated. Additionally, they tend to require greater skills, or at least different ones, than the jobs eliminated, and the people who held those jobs are often too old, too uneducated in the new field, or at times too unintelligent for retraining. One of the unfortunate things about our current presidential campaign is that candidates can do more than make grandiose promises about, quote, creating new higher-paying jobs, unquote. Just how will they do that? How will they turn a file clerk with a high school diploma into a computer archivist, a radio engineer into a telecommunications expert, a draftsman into a 3D print design analyst, etc.? I'm sure that many may make such transitions, but there will be many less of such jobs to transition to. When our theorists discuss these problems, they tend to come up with grandiose schemes such as, quote, guaranteed annual wage, unquote, a concept that goes back at least to conservative economist Milton Friedman and President Nixon, or, quote, mandated shorter work weeks or job sharing. While these approaches or some equally radical change to our way of doing business may eventually be an answer, they certainly will not occur in the terms of President Clinton or President Trump, and it is difficult to see how that unilateral changes by the U.S. in the present global market would maintain our competitiveness. So what are our valuable workers to do? They must concentrate on short-range stopgap actions to ensure they are employable. They must be highly educated and have the needed skills to obtain a position. They must then not only work hard at the position, but continue their education, whether it's college, grad school, or trade school. Most important, they must constantly be looking over their shoulders to see what is next. They must question constantly, are my skills current for this job, or the job that replaces this? Is my company current, or is it a target for acquisition? Can my job be done almost as well by a domestic service company or an offshore one? In other words, gone are the Ozzie and Harriet days of the 9-to-5 job and the evening with the family. The keyword of our new economy is adapt. Our workforce must be educated and adaptable. If it is, we may be able to hang on until one of the grand schemes is available to put everything back in some balance, not back in 2 weeks. And then that's the end of the 212 column. And last, and then in parentheses, I welcome comments on this piece to johnmac, johnmac13 @gmail.com. Creative Disruption has been a continuing series examining the impact of constantly accelerating technology on the world around us. These changes normally happen under our personal radar until we find that the world as we knew it is no more. John F. McMullen is a writer, poet, college professor, and radio host. Links to other writings, podcasts, and radio broadcasts at www.johnmac13.com, and his books are available on Amazon. Copyright 2016, John F. McMullen.